Hi everyone, this is Paul J. Ryan with designer and illustrator James Thomas Ryan, the founder and creative director of JTR Luxe. Hey James, how are you?
Hi, Paul. Hi, everyone. How are you doing?
Doing really well. Are we ready for our third podcast?
Yeah, I'm so excited. This is podcast number 3.
And it definitely will not disappoint. We have some very interesting topics to discuss. Shall we get started?
Yes, please.
Wonderful. And I think we're going to be starting with the current state of fashion. Do you have anything to say?
Yes, the current state of fashion is always reflective of the current state of the world and what's going around the world at the present time. So, for instance, if you look back to the 1950s and things were very fitted and women had a more feminine style that was embraced by the House of Dior. That was reflective of those times. And today, there's so much variety, and especially in price points and the idea of high and low fashion. And this has become sort of like a new phenomena in the fashion world.
Okay. And I also see that, the current state of fashion, it moves very fast, and there's always a different sort of theme. And lately, within the last decade or so, they've been using a lot more celebrities. Whereas they used to use models quite often on covers of magazines and things like that. But lately, the new muse is the celebrity.
Yes, and that's a very good observation. In the 1990s, it was very common that supermodels were used, and people like Linda Evangelista and Naomi Campbell. That's all you would really see on magazine covers, and they became quite famous. And Linda Evangelista was quoted as saying that she wouldn't get out of bed for less than $10,000 a day. So it was reflective of also the time where, there was a lot of money floating around, and these models were paid exorbitant amounts of money. Now celebrities are sort of the new models, in a sense that it almost takes a celebrity image to be on the cover of a magazine to sell it. And you go to any local newsstand and you look around, it's just kind of mind-boggling that every cover is really a celebrity.
And that really does say a lot about advertising, because in fashion, there's a lot of different techniques that advertisers use to promote. And I think that what you said about celebrities being one of the top advertising techniques.
Yeah, and basically in the fashion industry, they like to use whatever grabs people's attention. And, for a while, when Kate Moss was first starting out, and she represented this new crop of models who were coming out who were very waifish and not the healthiest looking image. And it eventually had to change to something that people could relate to more. So I think that people relate more to celebrities now these days. And, we feel like we almost know them because, we see them so much and we read about them and in interviews, and a lot of celebrities like to connect with their fans. So it would make sense, actually, that celebrities are the new muses for today.
Yeah, it definitely would. Now, let's discuss some of the techniques that these advertisers use when promoting the fashion merchandise.
Okay, great. I teach students.
Right.
And I tell them to be keenly aware of when they're looking at advertisements. And I tell them that advertisers are seen archetypally as spellcasters.
Okay.
And what that means is that basically, they're trying to put us under a spell, in that, they're trying to tell us that we need something.
Wow.
And it'll make us more attractive and make us feel better.
When in reality,
and in some cases, things can make you feel better. But it's important to see what's going on behind the scenes. And, people are always trying to push people's buttons and, using different techniques to grab people's attention. And, you see today things have just gone in a totally new direction, and it's really interesting to watch. So I advise people to just keep an eye on it and, enjoy looking at it and say, well, I wonder what that means, and sort of think about it a little bit.
So these advertisers really do try to get inside people's heads and sort of use their the psychology behind the way that you feel about yourself and things like that to get you to buy their product.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
It definitely makes sense. It's a good way to do it.
Right. Well, people's self-esteem can actually be affected by what they wear. So,
yeah.
Haven't you had days where you just didn't make that effort and you went out and you felt kind of schlumpy and and other days you go out and you made the effort and you feel I feel really good.
Of course.
It does make that kind of difference. And one of my favorite authors, who's Carolyn Mace, who writes on mysticism and spirituality, she talks about self-esteem and advertising and things like that. And she did mention one of the first things to do when you are looking to get your self-esteem going in the right direction on sort of a superficial level is to change something about your outer appearance. So it has significance.
It definitely does. It definitely does. And on another note, let's discuss some of the celebrities that are really prominent today in the sense of fashion and pop culture and influencing people in different ways that relate to the fashion industry. What are some celebrities that are very influential right now?
Well, there's so many different directions we could talk about, but why don't we focus on somebody that we all know, who's Lady Gaga.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, she has become sort of a cultural phenomenon, and especially in the fashion industry, the industry has really embraced her because she really represents someone who stands up for her individuality and is a very fearless kind of person when it comes to the way she dresses and, how she carries herself.
Right, she definitely does carry herself very well. Recently, she was on Vanity Fair's International Best Dressed list. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think that was a really good sign that we're moving in a direction where we can embrace wider audience of people who really don't look to others for advice on how they dress. They really stick to their own guns. And she really is a force to be reckoned with because, not only does she look to references in the past like Madonna and Grace Jones, for instance, but she really does make it her own, and that's what best dressed people do. They take the ingredients of clothing and then they mix it up into their own original statement. And she's become very good at that, and I admire her for that.
Right, so do I. Now, let's discuss about the worst dress. Now, what gets someone onto the worst dress list?
Well, it's funny. If you take a magazine and you put a couple people together who are, quote, fashion experts and, they decide who looks really bad this week and call it worst dressed. Well, you know what? That's just an opinion and it's very objective. And I would rather see someone who is making an effort and not very well dressed than someone just in a plain pair of jeans and a t-shirt. And it's very easy to criticize people who are making an effort.
Right. Well, thank you so much, James. This brings part 3 to a close.
Thank you, Paul, and thanks to everyone for listening to our podcast series.
Please stay tuned for our next podcast, and we look forward to seeing you all here again.
Good night, everyone, and thank you for listening.